Salute family and welcome back to another video. This is Black Truth United, and today we're going to be covering the subject of when the messenger matters more than the message. Occasionally people will use phrases like "I'm just the messenger," "Don't shoot the messenger," "There are no perfect messengers," "The message matters more than the messenger," and those phrases are okay to a certain extent, but unfortunately they're normally used to absolve the messenger of any and all responsibility. I mean, what are you accountable for as a messenger? The message can be as clear as possible. It can have all the scientific proof, books, statistical data, primary and secondary sources, but if the messenger fails to deliver the message properly, all that doesn't matter. What if the messenger delivers the wrong message, or leaves out certain information, or misinterprets the message? The best example I can give of this is when people play the telephone game, when one person tells the next person the message from the previous person, and things get lost in the translation. Another problem is, what if the messenger is speaking to the wrong audience? For example, if you have an FBA talking to a sea of white people regarding what FBAs need to implement in our own homes, it may be a positive message, it may be solution based, but the audience is off. Another example of the fault of the messenger is if that person sits on the information for too long. Let's say I'm in charge of telling the family about a deceased family member, and I tell them 3 hours before a funeral, or months after the funeral occurs. I gave them the right message, but the timing was off. So yes, the messenger and specifically how he or she delivers the message can matter more than the message itself. Also in that same vein, let's say the message is 100% correct, but the messenger's credibility is completely shot. This leads to distrust, and I'll give you a perfect example of this from none other than Charleston White, aka Agent White. Here's a tweet that I sent out to the family. And for context sake, this is after Charleston White got through with his cooning and buffooning, pretty much getting on code with the white supremacist and calling Karmeloanthony a thug when we obviously know that he was defending himself. It was a clear-cut case of self-defense. But anyway, after he supposedly met with the family, Charleston White came out and said that he apologized for what he had said and that he was wrong and all this and all that. And that's all good and well, but no one can trust this clown. As you can see in my tweet, I said the problem with attention-seeking Sambos is that even if they're telling the truth, they cannot be taken seriously. What he's saying may in fact be correct, but his credibility is shot. This is a man, or I should say male, who has talked about S-ing females. This is a male who goes out of his way to talk down on black society. No one can take him seriously. And then at the end I say, this is a classic case of the Sambo who cried wolf. In this case, the messenger mattered more than the message itself. His word essentially means nothing. For all we know, in 2 weeks he could come out retracting everything he said in this apology video. His word is essentially chaff in the wind. And think about the story of the boy who cried wolf. The message itself wasn't wrong, at least at the end, when there finally was a wolf. But his credibility was shot. No one believed him because he had a bad reputation. In other words, the messenger mattered more than the message. Let me give you some more examples. Let's say you're a parent, and I give you a best-selling book about how to protect and nurture your children. The author's a PhD and everything, the book is brand new, and you take that book home and you start reading it. And in the author's intro page, it casually mentions that he or she is a 4-time convicted PDF file. Now, would you continue reading the book? Hey, there's some good information in there. They've got a PhD. But obviously none of that matters because the messenger is not qualified. Let's continue with the examples. Would you take financial advice from a person who has historically been involved in all types of crimes connected to money laundering, fraud, other financial crimes? Obviously not. Even if the advice that that person is giving is 100% on point, that person cannot be trusted. Once again, the messenger matters more than the message. Let me give you another example. Would you trust a toxic, sexually irresponsible women beater to tell you how to have a successful marriage and family? There's no way. At least if you have some sense. That person is not qualified to share that message, even if what that person is saying is correct. And this brings me to Dominique Alexander, who's also connected to the Karmeloanthony case. He's not a lawyer, but he's a quote-unquote advocate. Now, we know Karmelo was acting in self-defense. He has a stellar record. They couldn't muddy his name. His family is top tier, everything above the board, so they couldn't paint him as a thug. But this other person who got up real close to him in a very suspicious manner has an extensive rap sheet, including but not limited to assaulting a baby. And when exposed, he used the platform of Karmeloanthony to try to settle some beefs with people who exposed him. Now, while what he's advocating for, which is Karmeloanthony's just release is correct. He's not qualified to be a messenger or a quote-unquote advocate in this particular case. Anytime people can pull up a rap sheet as long as his and use that as a way to indirectly attack a person who should be let free, who's not even remotely connected to any of this nonsense, you know there's something wrong with the situation. Again, the right message, the wrong messenger. Now let's get to my last example, which really disappointed me with some of the people who were quote-unquote new black media or new black media adjacent, and that's Candace Owens. Oh yeah, when Candace Owens came out before the election and she was exposing Kamala as being an Indian, which is 100% true, Indian/white, certain people who shall go unnamed were claiming she redeemed herself and she's now a trustworthy voice. Again, I'm not going to say any names, but those people know who they are. Now, while the message was good and the research was good as well, that does not nullify Candace Owens' infamous anti-black racism. I mean, we're literally talking about a person who openly lied and went on smear campaigns of nearly every person who was unjustly killed by the police or by a suspected white supremacist in general. Just lie after lie, including on Breonna Taylor, which was one of the most sickening examples. And while it's okay to point out that she was correct in regards to Kamala Harris, and she may be correct on other issues as well, it's always important to clarify that she is not even remotely connected to the black grassroots or the new black media. If you have any question on her real standing, I recommend watching Brother Tyreek's now classic video, From Bed Wench to Bed Woke, which clearly outlines her standing in the black community. This is the video from after she got ousted from the Daily Wire, or as I like to call him, the Daily Liar. And remember, she was going on a reputation cleanup tour with the Breakfast Slubs and others. But this video outlines her real standing in the black grassroots. No, you can't come over here and start representing us. And she figured that out soon enough, which is why she turned back to her base, to the point of inviting Nick Fuentes, a known white supremacist, open white supremacist, on her platform, who promptly turned on her like all white supremacists do, and is, at least at the time of making this video, still going back and forth with her. But once again, I think the point has been made. The messenger can, and does in many cases, matter more than the message itself. And I personally hate when people try to deflect and try to say that we just don't like scholarly people and people who are very articulate, Thomas Sowell and others. Oh, we love doctors. We love Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. John Henry Clark, who I read about recently. The Latinos are still butthurt about his words and pointing out their obvious hypocrisies with their fake minority coalitions. But anyway, there are other brothers as well, like Malcolm X, who may not have gotten a fancy degree, but was, at least in my opinion, one of the most brilliant minds to ever walk the face of the earth. So yeah, we love intellectual individuals as long as they're speaking for the black grassroots, as long as they are certified messengers. And that's why it's so important for us to, on an individual basis, keep our reputations clean. I'm reminded of the scripture in Proverbs 22 that states, "A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold." Guard your reputation. It can open doors for you that money and fame cannot. But anyway, hopefully this video has been helpful. Yes, there are situations in which the messenger matters more than the message itself. And like it or not, that's never going to change. So with all that being said, be one and be blessed, family. Peace.